With Joe Biden having a stroke during the presidential debate, Trump maintains his control of the Republican Party, while Ken Martin, the DNC chair, he's having a bit of a tougher time. Welcome to the Sean Spicer Show. Let's get into it. All right, guys, it is Thursday. It has been a rather short work week, so I'm excited to jump into the weekend. It's been kind of a rainy, gloomy few days in and around our nation's capital. It's finally getting sunny out. I'm getting ready for the weekend. Where was this during the 3-day weekend? I mean, it was cold and rainy, and now we're finally getting the weekend that we wanted. We had a lot to break down with the panel, though. Oh, my gosh. Joe Biden out with a bombshell about Joe Biden's performance at that presidential debate where he beat Medicare, which was the big news at the time. We're going to break that all down. Plus, Ken Martin having a tough time as DNC chair, keeping his party in check while Donald Trump continues to steamroll the Republican Party and make it very clear that it's his party. Before I bring in the panel, though, I got to tell you, as I said earlier in the week, for just a few days only, this is not going to go on. If you are interested in a Father's Day signed, inscribed copy of Trump 2.0, or I'll even do the briefing because I got a few extra of those around, go to SeanSpicer.com, go to the books tab, order your book. I'm not doing this for more than a few days because I want to make sure you get them for Father's Day. And if you're saying to me, hey, Sean, I don't want to give anything to my dad, but my kid has a birthday coming up or someone's got like another event, that's fine. I don't really care. But for 7 days, I'm signing and inscribing books that I'll send to you. Just go to SeanSpicer.com, hit that books tab for either the briefing or for Trump 2.0. We'll send them out to you real quick so you'll have them plenty of time. Anyway, as I said, a lot to get to with the panel today. So let's bring them all in. And by the way, tomorrow, former Secretary Robert Wilkie is going to break down the latest in Iran, Cuba, and all things national security with us. So you're not going to want to miss that as we head into the weekend. Without further ado, new to the show, Brooke Goldstein. She is the founder and executive director of the Lawfare Project. Welcome, Brooke. Our good friend up in Michigan, welcoming to the show, Tudor Dixon, the host of the Tudor Dixon podcast and the spokesperson for United We Fund. My former colleague in Texas, Chris Salcedo, the host of the Chris Salcedo Show, and the author of an amazing book called The Rise of the Liberty-Loving Latino, A New American Revolution. And obviously, by the way, if you're the media loves to talk about how the Hispanic vote was critical to Trump's win and how blah, 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 everyone. So maybe we'll check in with Chris in just a minute because he's the expert on this and he's got a whole book about it, whether or not this should be a problem. But guys, I want to start with this bombshell last night. God bless Jill Biden. She does this interview getting ready to promote her new book, and she's talking about Joe at the debate where he beat Medicare, as you recall. This is what she had to say in the CBS interview to make sure everybody starts on the same page. Take a look.
Were you horrified as you saw it unfold?
I wasn't horrified. I was frightened because I had never, ever seen Joe like that.
With the COVID, with dealing with everything we have to do with, look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden.
Before or since? Never.
Or since?
Yes, or
You've
since.
never seen him like
never.
that?
No.
What happened?
I don't know what happened. I mean, as I watched it, I thought, oh my God, he's having a stroke. And it scared me to death.
Joe, you did such a great job. You answered every question. You knew all the facts. And let me ask the crowd, what did Trump do? Why?
Tudor Dixon, I want to start with you. What the heck was that? I don't get, is she trying to sell books? Is she trying, that may have been one of the dumbest interviews I've ever seen.
Yeah, well, it wasn't a bombshell. I mean, I think we all thought he was having a stroke, but we thought it was like number 10 of the strokes that he's had because he clearly was not cognitively okay. And the fact that she sat there was like, it never happened before. He was the president of the United States. We all watched what was happening. We saw, you played the clip at the end where she says, you did such a great job. You answered every question. You don't talk to your husband like that unless he has been suffering from dementia for a long time. She was talking to him like you would talk to a an elementary school child, like a little kid. You would talk to them that way. She was giving him these accolades, like it's okay, because she knew he was mentally not there. I think it's insulting to the American people that she thinks now she can come back and go, my gosh, I don't know. We've never seen him since. She's doing this whole like social media thing where she walks through the house and feeds the dogs in the morning and opens the windows. And we're like, where's Joe? He's in a nursing home because he has had strokes. Like this was not a bombshell. We knew. It was just her admitting it because she wants to make money. She's a snake.
Brooke, does it make sense? I honestly, I was like, was that a sleight of hand? Like, I mean, I get it. We all knew, right? But she was the one who said, Joe, you ate all your supper. You didn't leave anything on the plate. You go to the clean plate club tonight. Like, Brooke, I was like, the whole idea was, though, they were like, no, this has never happened. And like, I can't believe they're saying it out loud. I get it. We knew it, but they were like, no, there's nothing to see here.
And they're still kind of saying that, right? It's just the continued defrauding of the American public. And it's just so insulting to our intelligence. And if you're going to make the effort to come on TV and present yourself now, I guess, as likable and honest, then you have at the very least to tell the truth that everybody knows. Now, I had a grandmother who suffered from dementia, and it's the slow burn. It's just not believable that all of a sudden the president of the United States, who is monitored 24/7 and who the entire world saw decline on camera together, for us to now believe that was the first time it's ever happened. I never saw it before, and it never happened after that. It's just so outrageously unbelievable. It's almost like hard for me I'm trying to figure out what is the PR angle? Who advised her on these particular talking points? Because these interviews aren't organic. She has a team of people behind her. It's the same with the Democrats just don't understand why their talking points are not working because they're treating us like idiots. Republican or Democrat, this is not believable on its face.
Chris Salcedo, I want to play off what Brooke just said. So you have a book that just came out. I have a book that just came out, right? We've all, like, when you prepare, like, here's what I want to say about my book. Here's what I don't want to say. Here's how I want to frame this, right? And this is why I want to frame this off of how Brooke just described this. Do you think in her book, she uses the analogy, Dan Turntime, my colleague on our morning show, The Huddle, brought this up this morning. Do you think that in her book, she uses that analogy that he looked like he had a stroke, or was that something that she did in the moment on CBS during that interview?
I can't imagine that she'd actually put that down on paper. That being said, let's all remember what the President Otto Penn Beijing Biden regime was all about. It was one big lie. Dr. Jill Biden perpetrated on the country in conjunction with the Democrat Socialist Party with individuals from the Barack Hussein Obama cabal, perpetrated on the country one of the biggest frauds that we have ever had to endure, where a bunch of people were running the Otto Pen who were not elected in this country. And Joe Biden and Dr. Jill Biden got to play White House for 4 years at the expense of the country. And Democrats do what Democrats do, revisionist history. And that's what they're trying to do, putting into all these books that are going to revise history from what we all saw with our own two eyes. It doesn't pass the smell test. Democrats' number one job, Sean, and this is from press secretary all the way to their elected officials, is to gaslight the country. We saw it with Barack Hussein Obama. We see it with Beijing Biden. That's what the Democrats do. They revise history and tell us, don't believe your lying eyes. And I think we're starting to finally, thanks to alternative media like this show, we're starting to beat that back and giving the American people an alternative. It's something we call reality.
So let me just ask you guys this. Does it matter? I mean, to Tudor's point, we all knew it. She's just saying what we knew. I mean, to some extent, maybe Pete Buttigieg or Kamala Harris is going to have to answer for this. But I guess the question is this just like finally she admitted what we all knew and it's a great one-day story and maybe she tries to sell a book? But does it even matter? You're just telling us what we knew. And are we going to laugh about this for a day or two and move on? Or will there be any legs to this?
I mean, I think the Democrats think it matters because I think it's deeper than this. I think they have this bad autopsy. They've looked at 2024 with great sadness and disdain, and they think that this is all just a fluke that they lost. And they think that this is a great way to explain that moment away. And then all of 24 goes away. Like, oh, yeah, it turns out maybe there was something wrong with him. And that wasn't our problem. That was his problem. Jill's going to own it for us. And now we can move on to 26 and 28, because I really do think they're in this mode of desperation. Like, what is our message? We have a very divided base. We have the socialist communist side. We have the side that's like the Schumer side that's trying to hold on to that base. But even he is being drawn into this crazy communist side because of AOC. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know what their message is for 26. They have Biden hanging over their heads because no matter what, people keep going back to, well, this is what you did in 24. They think this is a moment where they can cut that loose finally. We'll admit it, we'll move on. They tried to do it with the Jake Tapper book. They feel like this is putting the final nail in that coffin. I think it's a huge mistake for them. I think they just opened this can of worms right back up, and they did it without a message for 26. So they're still heading into the midterms, not knowing they have Graham Plattner, they've got Tallarico, they've got Abdul Syed, they have got these radicals in their party, and they're still trying to figure out how to make 2024 go away. Give me a break.
I forgot about the Tapper book. Brooke, Tudor mentioned the autopsy. This is Cory Booker. He was asked about, remember, I've been part of one. We did one at the RNC after 2012. I got to be honest with you, this whole thing, and we'll get into it, but this was Senator Cory Booker of New Jersey commenting on their autopsy. Take a listen.
The American people have lost trust because of all politics as usual. People are suffering, people are hurting, and they're going to support the leaders. And I'm seeing this in Tallarico, in Ossoff, in Cooper, in North Carolina, that those leaders are stepping up and saying, I don't give a damn about parties, I care about people. You cannot lead the people if they don't trust you. And that's what's lacking right now with party apparatus. But the people running out there that I'm running around this country trying to support, they're building real trust with the American people, and that's my hope.
All right, so Brooke, he's basically saying, autopsy, schmautopsy, right, and I get it. I mean, I'll put this in the same bucket. I don't think anyone in America cares whether the DNC did an autopsy or didn't. I didn't need an autopsy to tell me that Joe Biden wasn't fit to be president and that Kamala Harris is cringy. I didn't need that. I will say this. I thought the whole thing was stupid from the jump. The guy, they got one dude who's like a tainted old operative to supposedly lead this effort. And I still don't know how you ever thought that was going to work out well. But I'll ask you the same question I asked about these Jill Biden stories. Does the DNC autopsy story matter? I think the question is more poignantly, if everyone knows what the issues were in the campaign, do you really need an autopsy to tell you?
Well, it's interesting because I think the story actually isn't the autopsy itself. It's the reaction to it. The fact that you have, yes, a document. We all know Kamala was not the candidate that America was going to elect. She was absolutely ridiculous. The party is centered around extreme hatred. That's all it was. Hatred against Donald Trump. The American public did not go for it in record numbers. But now this reaction to an autopsy, a document, it's like 191 pages long. On almost every page is a disclaimer. Oh, this is not, representative of what the Democratic Party is. But so you're doing an autopsy. For what purpose? It doesn't matter if you're not doing it in a way that's actually going to give you insight. And I think Tudor was right. They don't know what their messaging is even after they did the autopsy. Like it's not indicative to them. They're not learning from it. They think messaging is TikTok and clickbait. And that's why Tudor said they're going to super extremism. And now, it's swinging back like, whoa, maybe this extreme stuff isn't working. Maybe all this crazy Nazi anti-Semitism stuff, progressive woke BS is not working. And so we're swinging back. And now you have Cory Booker coming out, and he is such a refreshing voice to have. And I'm really comforted. And I have hope actually for the first time that maybe politics is going to stop swinging to the extreme left, at least on their side. But then obviously you have the issue of the right now and the woke Reich, which is their, the conservative version of the clickbait. And I know that groups like Turning Point and CPAC are doing their own analysis. They're not publishing autopsies, but they're doing their own analysis about, well, are these messages, what really is MAGA? Are these extreme messages on the right, working for us? And I hope they can come to the same conclusion, that Cory Booker is that no, this is all un-American. We all have to be a little bit more centric. So that's what I think.
Chris Salcedo, before I move on from this, I will say Ken Martin, the DNC chair, the only people that can remove him are members of the DNC. Okay. And there's a lot of talk about how bad he's doing as the leader of the DNC. But at the end of the day, the only ones, it doesn't matter what Chuck Schumer thinks or Hakeem Jeffries or any of these people, because they're not members of the DNC. So the question I have for you is, my colleague, as I mentioned on the huddle, Dan Turrentine, said that there's a good chance that he is gone, that the wave becomes so big amongst DNC members to get rid of Ken Martin that they boot him and force him out by July 4th. I just don't think it matters, to be honest with you. No one is looking at the DNC for leadership.
True. And you know what? When we're sitting here talking about the past, Joe Biden, and did he have a stroke? Did he not? We're not talking about the important things that the Democrat Party did while they were in power for the 4 years of President Otto Penn. They did real and substantive harm to the country. Now, there are a lot of Republicans, the Paul Ryans of the world, who just want to, quote, move on. And, calling those who are conservatives, for example, extreme for wanting justice for what was done to harm our country. For example, opening up the borders and allowing 15 million criminal illegal aliens to bust into our country, millions of them unvetted who went on to do serious crimes. What about the lawfare when even the Republican Party itself, the entire apparatus of the Republican Party was illegally surveilled by an all-powerful government that was accountable to no one, using government taxpayer dollars to censor free speech? This was done by the Democrat Party. Did Joe Biden have a stroke? Hell, I don't know. But maybe we can focus on the real harm that was done to real Americans, not just the President of the United States, President Trump, but real Americans, and talk about some sort of accountability. And that's what's missing right now. This is what I'm experiencing here in Texas, going through a bruising primary runoff campaign where Republicans were actually spending hundreds of millions of dollars to defeat a conservative rather than defeating socialists and Marxists who did real and measurable harm to this country. And it's a fine discussion to have, to say, look what the Democrats did. Look at the fraud they perpetrated, still perpetrating on the country. Look at Minnesota, look at California, look at New York. But still, where's the accountability for what they have done? And it seems the current version of the Republican Party has no interest in bringing any accountability to dissuade Democrats from exploiting and harming this country in the future. And that's a big concern for a conservative guy like me.
Tudor, it's not just Ken Martin. Chris Van Hollen, who's a very senior member of Congress, he was in the House, now he's in the Senate, was asked about on CBS about the other leadership, the Chuck Schumers and folks, and this is what he had to say about them.
Well, Nancy, this is a very shoddy piece of work. It's an incomplete piece of work, and I can understand why Ken Martin was reluctant to release it earlier. But as he has said, he owns this problem. He should have just ripped the Band-Aid off earlier and put it out. No, we're 6 months from a very important election, and we should not be changing horses at this time. I will say that the overall thrust of the report indicates that, we should not just go back to the Trump status quo. And I've said from the beginning, it was a failure, obviously, of the Democratic Party to lose to someone like Donald Trump a second time.
I mean, he's alluded to the fact that the issues are more with the Senate leadership, like Chuck Schumer. I guess the point is, his point is, gosh, should we change horses? Is it a leadership problem, or do we have a bigger issue problem? And I think that's what Chris was getting at. Like, these guys are just not there.
No, I think, I mean, even Cory Booker is putting his hope into Roy Cooper, who is certainly not the next generation and is barely campaigning. He's also got a serious soft on crime issue. I mean, this is who they're desperately trying to look at people like Roy Cooper and say, oh, that's who we are, because that's the least offensive person that's running in their minds. And to me, I look at the Americans that were killed because of his soft on crime policies, and I say he's just one of the most dangerous people out there, just alongside the Tallaricos of the world, who are all for crushing the Christian religion, going after our youth, transing kids. All of this stuff is very radical. They don't have a safe place to stop. I mean, Cory Booker is trying to throw out people who are the least offensive in their party, knowing that it's far and few between. I mean, you look at Graham Plattner, who is out there openly communist in Maine, kicks out their traditional candidate, who was the governor of the state, because, and let's remember, this is how radical they are. Do you remember when Janet Mills was in the meeting with President Trump at the beginning of his term, and he said something like, well, we're going to have to get to the trans kids in girls sports in Maine, and she threatened him in that meeting? I mean, she's a radical. She wants boys and girls sports. She's a radical, and yet she still wasn't radical enough for where their party is today. They have gone off the edge. What their policies are dangerous. And just to piggyback on what Chris was saying, he was going through all the things that they've done that have harmed us immediately in this country. But look at what they did to Israel. And I know this is the controversial topic of the year for anybody in the Democrat Party and some of these people in the Republican Party, but you are lying to yourself if you do not understand that Joe Biden's idiotic policies on Iran cost us October 7th. They created that problem. We lost Americans. There were all kinds of people. I mean, we're talking about Europeans, Israelis, Americans murdered, raped, children killed. That was Joe Biden. The whole Middle East in an upheaval. People can say, oh, this is Netanyahu, this is Trump. Let's be honest. This came right from our White House when Joe Biden was living there. Wasn't coherent, but was living there. He caused these problems worldwide, and the Democrats are trying to go, where do we go from here?
I want to say
Brooke,
yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah, to that point, it's interesting because nobody's really talking about this stealth ideological warfare element that's happening. So yes, there's Democrat, there's Republican, but then there's massive, massive amounts of money. It's like we just saw there was an IRGC funded AI videos, these Lego videos circulating anti-Trump, spreading these extreme narratives that married like far right and far left. And the Democrats seem to be having now this awakening, but nobody's really talking about, well, what brought everyone so radical in the first place? Why is it that we have, the students on campus that are expressing extremist pro-terror ideas? Because that's the messaging that they're trying to pander to. So we have to also get at the root of the problem. And I think that we're at a critical moment because right now, the radical ideologies, even though they're very loud and they're on the street and they're very Islamist, frankly, and there's a lot of foreign funding coming into it, it's still a loud minority. But, this is a product of 20 plus years of the DEI, critical race theory, education. And we are actually just finding out now in our lawsuits that a lot of the diversity, equity, inclusion ideology was funded by Qatar, especially on campuses like Carnegie Mellon University. So there's such a bigger issue here right now beyond, okay, what messaging are we going to use to why is our society being radicalized? How do we stop the foreign funding coming in? I think the Republicans need to, use this as an election issue. There need to be protections, online for at least for children. So that they're not exposed to this kind of stuff. And maybe when we deal with the root of the problem, then our political parties will be able to come, back to reality, I guess.
Well, Sean, if I can just jump in and to buttress what Brooke is saying, I think that there has to be a legitimate discussion in this country to be able to call a spade a spade. And I think in conjunction with a left-wing press that is designed to push narrative over news, with a government education system that even Republicans are turning over our children to some of the most left-wing kook thought and ideology, which is on display, which was just discussed about, oh yeah, let's just go. Jew hatred is becoming mainstream, in my view, because of the left-wing domination of media and the left-wing domination of education. But it goes so far beyond that. It's a revisionist history, and it goes right back to how we started this whole conversation about Dr. Jill Biden writing this book. It's all designed to revise history, to exonerate the Democrats for what we know they have done. People who have left-wing thought. I shouldn't say Democrats, because there are plenty of America Last Republicans who are in conjunction with those very same Democrats pushing the same dang counterproductive, counter-American narrative and agenda items in our government today. You know me, Sean, I've been talking about the new political dynamic in this country. It's not Republican versus Democrats. Hell, it's not even conservative versus liberal. It is America first versus America last. And where are you? I am talking to you from a state right now where in the primaries, it's going to be James Tallarico, right? The Democrats chose a white fake Christian over a black woman who admittedly was a left-wing crazy person, but the Democrats, the voters, made the choice. I want the white guy, the fake Christian. I want him. It's not the first time it's happened in my home state of Texas. The Democrats were given a choice between Robert Francis Beto O'Rourke, a fake Hispanic, over a Colin Allred, who was, a left-winger, and I don't agree with anything he does, but a black guy. And who did the Democrats choose? They chose the white fake guy. The Democrat Party has a real serious problem. Left-wing thought has a real serious problem with the truth. And everything they do, from the media to their operations politically, is all designed to hide the truth from the American people so we can't have an honest conversation. And opposing Democrat racism is not radical. It's what Americans do. Opposing lawlessness is not radical. Buttressing the U.S. Constitution as limits on government power is not radical. It's what we're supposed to do as Americans. So we got to have an honest conversation and have people that are willing to push back on this. It's why President Trump is a threat to the current Republican establishment right now, why they've been so angry at him when you've got Bill Cassidy, for crying out loud, joining with the #1 state sponsor of terrorism and Lisa Murkowski and every Democrat to curtail President Trump's ability to get rid of nuclear weapons in Iran, a political calculus that future presidents will never have to consider if President Trump is successful. That we have got to start having honest conversations and getting out of the party dynamics, because really there are real and substantive issues that this party affiliation prevents us from having honest conversations like we're having here.
All right, I want to do one thing. I want to talk about Texas for a second, because you brought it up, and then I do want to talk about Michigan, because Tudor's expertise. But the through line is exactly what the three of you said in both of these cases, and I want to just touch on this, because to me, and I was going to correct you, Chris, but you were on a roll. Tallarico does believe that there are 6 genders. So we don't know that he is the white male. He could be, I mean,
we don't know what gender he is.
Right. He could be identifying with, and so let me just, let's start with Texas, and then I want to get to Michigan. Here's what I don't get about Texas. And this gets to this theme that all three of you are touching on. Tallarico goes on CBS yesterday, and he says, Ken Paxton is basically he said he's cherry picking the cringiest things I've said. Like, I'm sorry. Okay. What is he not supposed to point out that you think there are 6 genders and that God is omnipresent and non-binary, and that our border should be like a front porch that's unlocked? I mean, I don't understand how that's cringy. I mean, that's just stupid. And Tudor, I don't get, I mean, to Chris's point, like, where's the outrage? Like, to me, this is insane. Like, how do you, like, he's now getting, like, just saying, guys, you guys can't just cherry pick these comments that I've said in public, like, out loud.
Right. Welcome to politics. So this is Politics 101. Everything you've said is now on the record and can be picked apart. I do want to point out that he did recently say he had a girlfriend, which I was surprised by because I was like, he's identifying her as a girl. I mean, that's striking. I didn't know
he
that
also
he was allowed
like
to do
ate
that.
turkey too, and
They
apparently
don't know what women, the
Right.
Democrat Party doesn't know what women.
Girlfriend. So we've never seen her. She's like Snuffleupagus. So we don't know if she actually exists.
we've actually seen Snuffleupagus though, just so we're clear.
Well, that's true. That's true. But that's because we were on the other side of the TV. No one else at Sesame Street had seen them. So that's his life.
Okay.
You know, we're not sure that she actually exists, but he's never with her. I mean, this is the creation of a politician. We saw his transformation through the primary, which was radical. And now someone has gotten a hold of him and said, okay, this is what it looks like to win Texas. We're going to put a girlfriend in there. Nobody has to ever see her. You don't have to go anywhere with her. But that's going to be critical to you getting elected. We're going to put a piece of meat in your hand. We'll do an AI picture. We'll have the Democrats tweet it. Your lips won't even be touching it, but you'll just say that you eat meat. I mean, this is when people go, okay, we're going to have a makeover for a woman in politics. They're like, we're going to change the way you dress. We're going to change your hair. This guy, it's like, you're a man now. We're going to make you into a man. But he can't do it because he doesn't believe it. I mean, he's been through this grooming system of the radical new church of whatever his church is of the LGBTQ, and he is all about they ask him, what do you love? I love trans kids. Like, who says that?
No, that's the cringy thing, by the way. That is full on cringe.
Yeah.
Right. But I think he's using cringy as this word where it's like, okay, cringy is something that you did as a kid and you can get over it. It's not cringy. This is his true beliefs. And the Republicans are not going to let him forget that. I guarantee you that is, I'm sorry, Chris, but this is your life for the next few months. All you will see is all of the horrific, radical things he has said. And you will keep learning new radical things he has said because he's not quiet. These are not one-time things. This is a consistent pattern of life, and these are his votes as well. It's not just cringy comments. It's what he's tried to put into law. I mean, this is the same guy that said abortion, God approved abortion because Mary was the original abortion story. He gave her the choice. I mean, talk about someone who is offensive to Christians. And I just hope that we have a good advertising campaign that makes sure that the Catholics and especially the Hispanic community that I know are strong Catholics hear this guy's true message, not cringe. This is his true message, and understand that he mocks you. He does not care about you. He is not a representative of you. He mocks you.
Yep.
That's who he is.
Maureen, it's not just Tallarico in Texas. One of the runoffs was with this woman who had won by the biggest share if they didn't do a runoff system. This woman, Maureen Galindo, would be the Democratic nominee. I think it's in Texas 35. And this is what she had written. When Maureen gets into Congress, she'll write legislation so that all Zionists and supporters of Zionism is undoubtedly anti-Semitic, since it's Zionists harming the Semites. She'll turn, I guess it's Carnes ICE Detention Center, into a prison for American Zionists and former ICE officers for human trafficking. She will also be a castration process for pedophiles, which will be mostly Zionists.
Wow.
That is the Democratic. She won the most votes until the runoff. They pushed her, but that's what the Democratic Party is come to, and yet we don't expose it enough. That's where this is the quiet part out loud part. And yet, I don't know how we're not capitalizing on this enough. Like, when I read that, I'm like, just so we're clear, for anyone who sort of wants to, she's saying we're going to put Jews in ICE detention centers and castrate them. Like, I'm sorry, how is that not like national news? That what was the standard bearer of the Democratic Party in that area until the D's even went after her. They were like, we can't have this. But I'm like, what are we doing that we're not calling that out and saying, you want to look at who we have as candidates? This is them.
This is, I'm sorry to say, and I know we're all students of history here, a sign of a very, very sick society when it has come to the point where Jew hatred right? The world's oldest persecuted minority community, the Jewish community. And we are in the age of minority rights movements. And still, it is socially acceptable. And it's not behind the scenes, it's overt now, and it's in your face to say these types of things that would not be acceptable to say about any other minority, to say it about Blacks, to say it about Muslims. You know, it's so disturbing, especially as an attorney, because this is a civil rights issue that has been so highly politicized, right? When you have Mamdani blame Jewish synagogue goers, blame Jews for mobs of pro-Hamas, pro-Hezbollah terror mobs surrounding the synagogue and threatening the Jewish community, impeding their access, screaming death to the Jews, death to America. And you have a politician, an elected politician, Mamdani, saying, well, you know what? It's the Jews' fault. Their presence itself in Israel is a provocation, right? And ironically, this is a man who opposes, you know, the illegal, you know, transfer of land. Jews can't buy land in Judea, but he wants to redistribute the wealth illegally in New York City right now. You know, Jew hatred is a virus. It is a disease. And, you know, I'm the founder of End Jew Hatred. We just did a protest in New York City. And what was so remarkable to me was a protest against extremism and hatred. It was interfaith. We had Muslims show up. We had a Muslim speaker, Anila Ali. She's wonderful. She since has been threatened and told to go to hell by a Democratic lawmaker in Brooklyn for standing up for her, for Jewish New Yorkers and the protection of their civil rights. We had Christian speakers, we had Black speakers, we had everybody come together because they realize extremism, even though it's, you know, anti-Semitism, it's an issue for all Americans, and it's a sign of the degradation of our society. We have to get this under control.
Brooke, I mean, and it bears pointing out that because of the timidity of the Republican Party, there is a Democrat in Maine who is polling ahead and likely will win, who has a Nazi tattoo on his chest. All of a sudden, Democrats are like, yeah, Nazism is cool.
Chris, I don't mean to correct you again, but a lot of times you can walk into a tattoo parlor and say, hey, that one looks nice, put it on my chest, and not have any clue that that's a Nazi tattoo.
But he's admitted it.
I mean,
he's admitted it.
No, but here's what he admitted. He said, I had no idea. And that's where I think, like, at that point, you're just playing stupid. The idea that you go to a tattoo parlor and be like, hey, what's that thing up in the corner? I'll do one of those on my chest. And
look, I'm saying right now, the guy with a Nazi tattoo on his chest is acceptable to the Democrat Party. Why? Because he's a Democrat. Everything that Brooke was talking about, all the anti-Semitism, all the racism, everything is cool as long as it features Democrats making an advancement, advancing their political idea and their ideology. I'll give you another example. Tallarico, back here to Texas. Do you know who's responsible for inventing James Tallarico? Republicans. This is, I know I'm going to shock many of you around the country. Here's the current Republican Speaker of the Texas House was elected by 49 Marxist Socialist Democrats and 36 fake Republicans. You guys do the math at home. 49 Socialist Democrats voted for the current Republican Speaker in the Texas House and 36 fake Republicans to put him into power. He then turned around, which has been the custom of fake Republicans in Texas, gave power to the likes of James Tallarico and other Democrats to have veto power over legislation that would be conservative and benefiting the state of Texas. Right now, as we're speaking, as James Tallarico is the Democrats' nominee for Senate in Texas, the Republicans refuse to strip him of his committee assignments and his power, even after the Democrats abandoned Texas and went to stop voting integrity measures and went to Washington, D.C. No punishment for them. So this is what I've been talking about how the two-party system is really not serving us very well because it's more of a uniparty system right now, to the point to where Democrats can openly embrace these radical left-wing anti-American policies and people, and they never get called to the carpet. To your point, Sean.
I know. Tudor,
why is not national news?
But before we get to winners and losers, Tudor, in 30 seconds, just politically speaking, okay, if Abdul Al-Sayed is the Democratic nominee, does Mike Rogers win the U.S. Senate seat there? Okay, just give me 30 seconds politically, or are we missing the boat? Is this going to be a tougher race? Because we got to get to winners and losers, and our time is running short.
I think it's going to be very tight. I would love to say it's an automatic win for him. I don't think that El-Sayed does well in northern Michigan, in western Michigan, certainly not in the UP. But I think that they have a machine here that we don't know about that is different than what they have in other states. And the Democrats tend to get votes that they find mysterious places. He's trying to convert college students. He's going to get those votes in November. I don't know if he can win without them in August, but he's headed that direction. So I think it's tight no matter what.
Just as a reminder, we're about to celebrate or memorialize the 25th anniversary of 9/11, and then potentially elect a guy who is a 9/11 denier. That's a whole nother story. All right, we got a couple minutes to do a quick losers and winners and losers. Brooke, you're new. Give me your loser of the week.
I'm going to stick with Zohran Mamdani, who just continually exposes himself as though we knew, who he was all along, but he is such a radical. And now there's legitimate calls for Governor Kathy Hochul to remove him, as she should.
Wow. Chris, who's your loser?
John Cornyn, after 24 years of betraying the conservative movement, betraying his political party's planks, betraying the state of Texas and, frankly, his country, he was devastating loss to an actual conservative, the Attorney General of Texas, Ken Paxton.
Okay. Tudor, who do you think lost the week?
Here in Michigan, it's Mallory McMorrow for sure. She was riding high early in the Senate campaign. You just talked about Abdul because she's so far behind him. She fought him on the progressive side. She's lost. Her days of licking her lips at the DNC, I think, are done.
All right. Normally people take the ones that I think of because I always go last. And so I always have a backup. Neither one got taken. So I'm going to use host prerogative and tell you both. The number one, I think the Democratic Party, after this whole failed autopsy, then had the gall to put out an image on Memorial Day saying, these are Americans who died in Trump's war with Iran. That was how they celebrated Memorial Day. It was so badly received. Even other Democrats crapped all over it, and they ended up taking it down. My second, though, goes to the press secretary for one aforementioned Graham Plattner, who emailed Dave Portnoy, the president of Barstool, asking him if he would like to have Graham Plattner on his show to talk about this new ad that they had going against private equity in the Red Sox, to which Dave Portnoy responded, so isn't that the Nazi guy? And the press secretary said, ha ha. And he goes, so you want a Jew to platform Graham Plattner? Are you kidding me? And the guy said, Dave, can we get to a place where we can just talk about the Red Sox? What a bonehead move. Anyway, those are my tie losers. I'll go to you, Brooke, real quick. Who do you think, we got to be tight on this, who do you think the winner is?
Well, I just changed it right now because we didn't get to the story. And I want to just mention Mark Cuban because I think that he's come out publicly and, it's, healthcare and the affordability of prescription drugs is like still one of those issues that we want to count on people to support the President Trump. And he came out, even though he's a critic, and he said Trump is right. And I just want to give him some kudos.
He's definitely getting kudos for what he did on Trump RX because I think it's a smart business move. Chris Salcedo, give me 20 seconds who your winner is.
The Mandalorian and Grogu. I'm hearing that it's not a great movie, but I'm hearing it's a good movie, and Star Wars fans are walking out of the movie theater satisfied, not regretting the money they spent on woke Disney. So, The Mandalorian and Grogu, new offering from Star Wars.
Okay, just going to be clear. Star Wars had 3 movies, and then it was over. Star Wars, Return of the Jedi, and that's it. I don't acknowledge anything after that. Tudor Dixon, bring us home.
I say the people of Los Angeles, the average mom and dad who is finally getting their voice heard through Spencer Pratt, who has been so creative and so real and so neat the way he's run this campaign and really been able to let the people of Los Angeles be heard. Yeah, he was very critical of Karen Bass and catching her campaigning illegally in violation of LA law. I hope we had gotten to that. My winner of the week is American Flag Blue. American Flag Blue. That is the color that the president chose. But here's the best part. The reason I picked it. The Washington Post did a fact check. They went out and they said, this is the story. They said, did Trump pick the right blue for the reflecting pool? We asked a pool guy. And if you read all 1,221 words of the Washington Post story, which I'm about to save you from doing, they actually acknowledge that
that American flag blue was the right decision by President Trump. So as much as they try to hate on this guy, he knows how to make a building. He knows how to paint a pool. This is the winner of the week. Thank you guys for being with us. I loved our discussion today. As I mentioned, tomorrow, Secretary Robert Wilkie is going to break down everything that's happening in the foreign policy world between Iran and then whether or not we're about to invade Cuba. You're not going to want to miss this. Again, that offer, if you want to buy Trump 2.0 or the briefing, go to SeanSpicer.com and go to the book section. Thanks for being with us. We'll see you back here tomorrow.